Welcome back. Well, for the markets, it's picking up a little bit of pace for the mid-cap index. So it's up around 0.5%, you'd have to say, for the mid-cap index. Even the Nifty, in fact, has flattened out a little bit. So maybe it's showing some signs of probably turning into the green, just about lower by around 22 odd points. I just want to point out AstraZeneca. We spoke about it briefly some time ago. That stock is up around 11.5%, doing well on the back of its Q4 numbers. If you just look at the numbers this time around, it's been a huge turnaround on a year-on-year basis. Revenue is up 25% year-on-year. EBITDA is up around 74%. Margins have improved to 18% versus 13%, and a profit growth of around 47% year-on-year. So that's what's the performance like for AstraZeneca. Sequentially as well, there's been a good jump in terms of the profit and the EBITDA of around 12% year-on-year in terms of absolute terms. Remember that there's some positive news globally also with regards to AstraZeneca's drug, one of their cancer drugs globally, and that could have a possible positive ripple effect on the Indian stock as well. And that's probably giving it further momentum in today's trading session, 8,891 odd rupees for AstraZeneca. But let's go across to Manisha Gupta now. She's tracking the commodity space for us. Manisha.
Thank you so much for that, Ekta. And joining us on the show now is Kunal Shah from Nirmal Bank. Kunal, hi. And the markets seem to be really reacting to the weekend news, really, where the President Trump has spoken about increasing tariffs on aluminum and steel effective 4th of June. And this is up by nearly 50% right now. The immediate effect has been that we've seen prices decline for aluminum and steel both. How would you look at the near term? Is this a knee-jerk reaction? And how would you look at longer-term implications for this?
Okay. I think Kunal Shah is joining in just a bit. But Manisha, in the meantime, if you can just give us an update in terms of the commodity space and what you're tracking today.
Well, metals really, Ekta, because this is an area that the street did not see coming. Perhaps 25% of a duty is something that aluminum and steel both have seen already. The expectations really have been that as the tariff conversations go, we'll perhaps see this also easing off in the next 3 months or 90 days therein. But what we have seen instead is that you've seen the duties go up from 25% to 50% at this point in time. So there is a price decline that we have seen. If India, or rather if US is looking of producing more of aluminum and steel going forward, then we perhaps will see China looking for other markets. Kunal is with us now. Kunal, so if US is going to be producing all of these metals, including aluminum and steel, where do you see China then dumping its metals?
Well, I think the kind of import numbers which, so roughly US imports are about 4 million tons of aluminum. And I think that number cannot be dumped across in the globe. Because if you see, barring countries like India, where the demand growth is very strong, in rest part of the world, the demand growth is in a single digit. So I believe going forward, China will left with no option but to cut the production of excess capacity and production of aluminum. So they have to weed out the excess capacity. Because dumping, they know what has been the policy of India. We've seen in the case of steel, we've seen in case of aluminum. So if there is a dumping going on, I think the ministry is going to take a call. Even in case of steel, we have seen anti-dumping duty coming in. So if further dumping takes place, we will see the anti-dumping duty going up to the extent of another 10 to 15%. So I believe that the global market, ex-US, will witness surplus because of this. And that surplus had to be weed out by China by cutting their excess capacity and the production. So in a shorter term, there may be some glut building in the global economy. But going forward, China will left with no option but to cut production.
Kunal, in the initial conversations and statements as well, we saw a huge disparity when it came to LME markets and then again the US markets. Do you see a similar kind of scenario rise yet again?
Yes. See, in this kind of scenario, because of tariff, you take any commodity and there is a possibility where there can be a disconnection between the spot market and the futures market. That is the reality. Because when you talk about 50% tariff, what's going to happen if I'm going to need copper or I'm going to need aluminum? There is a shortage. So if I import it, I have to pay 50% tariff. Okay, so I will try to procure material before Wednesday as much as possible. So there can be a possibility that the spot market can get tighter in a shorter term, and you may see a big short squeeze also in futures. So that kind of scenario. So earlier the prices were moving as per the traditional demand and supply scenario. We saw the similar thing happening in gold, where we've seen a big squeeze taking place, and because of the tariff fear, there was a mad rush in spot market to buy gold. Yeah, US market. So same thing we can expect going forward in case of aluminum. The automakers or the key component users of aluminum, if they want to procure the aluminum, because the capacity, US has ample of excess capacity in case of aluminum, okay? But to get all these capacities on stream and start producing aluminum and steel to the extent that their import is totally weed out, that's not going to be possible in near term. So I think there is a possibility that the spot market can get very tight before we actually experience the glut. So I'm not expecting a big crash in prices.
Sure. Kunal, how would you look at the Indian market impact? Of course, there are some companies that have reacted today with the international exposure they're in. But for Indian markets, does this mean anything at all? Or do you think there's going to be a minimal, if any, impact at all?
So first of all, we have to accept that it's a multipolar world, and this is going to remain. We are going to remain we are not going back to the globalization. We are going to remain multipolar. The geopolitical escalation across the globe is been rising. And now when you talk about the supply side shock, because of all this scenario, are going to be real. So as of now, I don't see any major impact on the Indian steel producers or Indian, because I think the policy of government is very clear. So whenever government have sense, there is a possibility also of a sharp dumping taking place in India in case of any metals. They have reacted quite swiftly. So they have taken 3 months, 4 months, but their stance is very clear. So even this time, we are not the major, the only fear India has is of the dumping. And I think that the ministry will take care of.
Okay, all right, Manisha as well as Kunal, thanks very much for joining and taking us through the commodity space. Well, we need to wrap up on halftime reports. Stay tuned for more unmatched insights and unparalleled market coverage. Keep watching. Nuvama presents CNBC TV 18 Market Central.